This is Myles Jordan, here to discuss how cellists can achieve maximally smooth bow changes at the frog through a series of 8 colle exercises. Because colle is the study of hand and wrist motions in isolation, all these exercises are done with an absolutely still right arm. Only the hand moves. When we concentrate as much attention on the right hand as we normally give the left, it's surprising how much there is to learn. There are 2 categories of colle exercises, with and without the instrument. Here are a series of 5 practiced without the cello and a group of 3 done with it. If some of them are familiar to you, please bear with me. When they're all mastered, we'll be able to understand bowing techniques that aren't nearly as well known as they should be. Let's begin the first category with what's sometimes called the magic trick. We start by dangling the hand in a complete state of relaxation without the bow. Notice how closely together the fingers naturally lie. It's very important that the relationships between them remain exactly the same when we fit the bow to the hand. Withstand any temptation to contort or spread the fingers wider apart. Always allow the bow to fit to the hand's natural shape. Never adapt the hand to the bow. Some people have speculated that the magic trick's aim is to teach us how to play with the pinky on top of the bow. That's a complete misunderstanding. The magic trick just sets up the pinky as the first and most important example of a balanced finger, as we'll see shortly. For the second exercise, we're going to actually start moving the pinky while sustaining the magic trick. And hopefully, of course, without dropping the bow. So you may wish to lay aside your tourte or your piquette and pick up a fiberglass bow until you have it down. This exercise is designed to find the pinky's balance zone while the finger's in motion. Lift and lower the bow's tip strictly by pressing the pinky down at the frog to raise it, then releasing the pinky upwards to lower it. No arm motion. The finger should never slide out of its place on the bow as it presses down or releases the stick. If it does, it's not positioned in the right place. When balanced correctly, it should feel possible to wiggle that pinky on the stick all day long without stopping. Begin with the pinky much further back than normal, almost behind the frog. A V shape forms between the stick and the line of the knuckles. If we try to keep the knuckles and the stick more parallel with each other, as happens when we play, the pinky will immediately slip forward off the stick. So please momentarily leave aside any functional bow hold ideas for the sake of this exercise. It's extremely important to raise and lower the bow's tip without rotating the forearm or lifting the bow with the index finger. That's cheating. Once we've mastered lifting the tip using just the pinky, then we can move on to the third step, which is to integrate the thumb. In most hands, the thumb and the pinky are the shortest digits and the closest in length, so colle establishes a special relationship between them. To experience that relationship, we put the bow down and pick up something a little less valuable, a cap eraser fitting over a pencil. Holding it between the thumb and the pinky, we carefully extend the eraser outward as far as it will go without losing hold. Then in again, all the way toward the palm as far as it'll go. Both digits have to flex and straighten exactly in a coordinated way. In other words, we've established a zone of finger flexibility within which we can now retain complete balanced control of the bow. Now we're ready for the fourth exercise, which is to pick the bow back up and apply our new integration of thumb and pinky to the fullest possible range of motion, still with the bow in the air. If we think of graph paper and how any sort of curve can be plotted on a horizontal and vertical axis, then you'll understand the gist of this exercise. The horizontal axis is a gate-like movement of the bow, made by extending the thumb and the pinky outward, making the bow's tip pull inward toward us, then reversing, pulling the pinky inward, curling both it and the thumb to push the tip away from us. Now, a word about the thumb placement. Position the thumb's furthest bone as closely as possible to a 90-degree angle to the bow, and with the thumb nail as closely as possible parallel to the stick, so that the thrust of its energy into the wood will be at the most efficient angle possible. If the thumb begins to slip downward after a few flexions, then the initial contact point has to be higher up the side of the frog, closer to the palm. After moving the bow's tip horizontally in and out like a gate, then we're ready for the fifth exercise, to move it vertically up and down like a hinged drawbridge. Raising the tip now is done by pushing the thumb and pinky down together, then lowering it by flexing both digits upward into the palm, always in coordination, never allowing either one to slide off its place on the frog. That allows the fingers to create circles, figure eights, or any other pattern with the tip of the bow freely and without slipping around on the stick. It's important to understand that everything we've done so far teaches us only how to hold the bow properly. Capet never intended it to illustrate any particular kind of bowing. There's been some speculation in the blogosphere that perhaps what's intended with these motions is some sort of vibrato bowing. Bluntly put, that's nonsense. Now we're ready for the second category, in this case, 3 colle exercises performed at the instrument. So let's begin with a series of down bows starting above the string, then coming down very gradually, as Rostropovich used to say, like airplane landing on runway, so slow, until wheels are on ground. Our final bow hold allows the stick to rest comfortably in the hand, both in the air and on the string, always keeping the balance zone so as to move the pinky and thumb together. For the 6th and 7th closely related exercises, the hand describes a complete counterclockwise circle, almost all of which is done in the air. What's important is sneaking unobtrusively onto the string, then continuing the downward curvilinear motion, settling our full arm weight almost immediately into the string. Even before we contact the string, we begin using our thumb-pinky relationship. Both digits begin in a curved shape and curve even more just before the hair touches the string. Then almost halfway through the stroke, they gradually begin to straighten in a follow-through motion aided by the wrist. As a general rule, the wrist and fingers move in contrary motion to each other. When one flexes, the other straightens. Then for the 7th exercise, we reverse. Now the circles we make in the wrist are clockwise. We gently, smoothly, quietly land on a series of, again almost immediately, forte, up bow. The fingers begin flexing just before the hair touches the string and continue flexing during the up bow in a follow-through motion as the wrist straightens and the hand lifts out of the string again for the next up bow. In both directions, it should always feel a little like pulling the culm of a grass blade smoothly out of its collar, firmly, but beginning very gradually so as not to break it. Try to achieve the most imperceptible possible beginnings to each note, then to follow through the stroke in a straight, smooth line parallel to the bow hair. Now, for the 8th and last exercise, we're ready to join up and down bows together. Both shoulders should be maximally low and relaxed so that twitches or any other inadvertent movements can be avoided as much as possible. Arm weight in the bow can be surprisingly heavy now, and the dynamic quite loud, provided that the note ends with a tiny curvilinear upward motion producing a very slight reduction of pressure in the fingers on the bow. That reduction shouldn't be enough to affect the dynamic significantly, but it's enough to neutralize any plosive articulation on the next note. That's of the utmost importance. Any reduction in pressure is then restored immediately after the start of the next note through an equally tiny curvilinear downward motion in the fingers. When fingers perform these motions, the reduction or restoration of pressure can be micromanaged to tolerances impossible for the arm. When this tiny 8-exercise peek into the world of Collet is mastered, the achievement of smoother bow changes at the frog represents a significant improvement in our ability to sustain a legato line at any dynamic level. So congratulations and happy practicing.